The morning sky above New Haven burned orange as the Korath ships descended through the atmosphere. Commander Lisa Martinez pressed her face against the cold metal wall of the defense station and watched her world die. Explosions lit up the horizon where the main city used to be. Black smoke rose from a dozen smaller towns scattered across the green valleys below. "Commander, we're getting reports from all sectors," said Captain Jake Sullivan, his voice tight with stress. "The Korath landed troops in 12 locations. Our ground forces are falling back everywhere." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. 3 days ago, New Haven had been a peaceful farming world. The Villani people who lived here had never hurt anyone. They grew food and raised families and built beautiful gardens. Now everything was burning. The Villani were not warriors. They were small, gentle beings with large eyes and soft voices. Their planet had no weapons factories or military bases. The only reason the Korath Empire wanted New Haven was its rich soil and perfect climate. They planned to kill or enslave every Villani and turn their world into a food production center. "What about our fleet?" Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. Jake shook his head. "The Korath destroyed most of our ships in the first hour. We have maybe 6 fighters left, and they're almost out of fuel. The defense platforms are gone too." Lisa walked to the communications console. Her hands shook as she typed in the codes for the emergency distress beacon. This was their last hope. Maybe someone out there would hear their call for help. Maybe someone would care enough to come. "This is Commander Lisa Martinez of the Villani Defense Corps," she spoke into the microphone. "New Haven Colony is under attack by the Korath Empire. We have over 2 million civilians trapped on the surface. Our defense forces are nearly destroyed. We are requesting immediate military assistance from any allied vessels in range." She paused and looked out the window again. More ships were landing near the eastern settlements. She could see the flash of weapons fire in the distance. The Korath fleet has over 100 ships in orbit. They are beginning ground operations to capture or eliminate all Villani civilians. We estimate we have less than 72 hours before total planetary occupation. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help. The people of New Haven are counting on you." Lisa ended the transmission and activated the emergency beacon. The signal would bounce from relay station to relay station across known space. It would reach the nearest human outpost in about 6 hours. Earth itself was much farther away. Jake looked at the star charts on his screen. The closest human fleet is in the Ross system. That's 8 days away at best, assuming they drop everything and come immediately. "What about the patrol groups?" Lisa asked. "Too small. The Korath would destroy them before they could even get close to the planet." Lisa sat down heavily in her chair. She had served with human forces for 5 years before coming to New Haven. She knew how their military worked. They were brave and loyal, but they were also practical. No commander would sacrifice ships and crews for a lost cause. The communications officer, a young Villani named Kess, looked up from his station. "Commander, I'm receiving multiple signals from the surface. The Korath are demanding surrender from all remaining settlements. What are they offering? Slavery for those who surrender immediately. Death for those who resist." Lisa felt anger rise in her chest. The Korath were known across the galaxy for their cruelty. They took pleasure in causing pain and fear. Any Villani who became their slave would face a life of endless suffering. "Send a message to all our ground forces," she ordered. "Tell them to keep fighting. Help might be coming." Jake gave her a worried look. "Lisa, you don't really think anyone will come, do you? We're too far from the main shipping lanes. Most species don't even know this system exists." Lisa stood up and walked back to the window. She watched a group of Korath fighters streak across the sky, heading toward the northern settlements. In a few hours, those peaceful farming communities would be battlefields. "The humans will come," she said quietly. "How can you be so sure?" Lisa thought about her time serving on human ships. She remembered Captain Angela Davis, who had risked her own vessel to rescue survivors from a pirate attack. She thought about Admiral Patricia Wong, who had personally promised that Earth would protect its allies. She remembered the human saying, "No one gets left behind." "Because that's who they are," Lisa said. "Humans don't abandon their friends." Jake looked skeptical. "Even if they wanted to help, the distance is impossible. By the time any human fleet could get here, we'll all be dead or enslaved." Lisa activated her personal communicator and sent a private message to her old friend Captain Davis. The message was simple. "Angela, they're killing everyone. If you can hear this, please remember us." She knew the message would take days to reach Earth. She knew that even if Davis received it immediately, No human ship could travel fast enough to make a difference, but she also knew that humans were stubborn. They had a way of making impossible things possible. The defense station shook as Korath bombers passed overhead. Alarms began ringing throughout the facility. Lisa looked at the tactical display and saw red dots spreading across the planet's surface like a disease. "Commander," Kess called out, "the Korath are jamming most of our communications. I can keep the distress beacon active, but local communications are failing." "Keep sending the signal," Lisa ordered. "Someone out there needs to know what's happening here." As the hours passed, the situation grew worse. Reports came in from the surface about Korath troops destroying hospitals and schools. They were using fear as a weapon, trying to break the spirit of anyone who might resist. Major Steve Johnson led the largest group of surviving defenders. His voice crackled over the radio. "We're holding the northern valley, but we're running low on ammunition. The Korath have heavy weapons and air support. We need help soon." Lisa wished she could give him better news. The truth was that their small defense force couldn't hold out much longer. The Korath had overwhelming numbers and superior firepower. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was a massacre, but she kept thinking about the humans she had known. They had a saying, "The cavalry always comes." She didn't fully understand what it meant, but she knew it had something to do with rescue arriving at the last moment. Lisa looked up at the stars through the station's viewport. Somewhere out there, beyond the darkness of space, was Earth. She closed her eyes and made a silent wish that her human friends would somehow find a way to reach them in time. The distress beacon continued to pulse its desperate message into the void, carrying the hopes of 2 million innocent lives toward an uncertain fate. Admiral Patricia Wong stared at the holographic display in the war room, deep beneath Terra Defense Command. The distress signal from New Haven had arrived 6 hours ago, and she had been studying the tactical situation ever since. The numbers were not encouraging. "It's impossible," said General Carl Baker, shaking his head. "The Korath have 300 ships in that system. We would need to send our entire fleet to have any chance of success. And by the time we could organize and deploy such a force," added Colonel Beth Harper, "every Villani on that planet would be dead or enslaved." Admiral Wong touched the controls and zoomed in on the Kepler 442 system. New Haven appeared as a small blue dot surrounded by red enemy markers. Between Earth and that distant world lay 6 Korath-controlled systems and countless hostile patrol routes. "What about the Terra Prime fleet?" she asked quietly. The room fell silent. General Baker looked uncomfortable. "Admiral, that project is still classified at the highest levels. The Senate doesn't even know those ships exist. Maybe it's time they found out." Admiral Wong had spent 3 years secretly building the most powerful space fleet in human history. The Terra Prime fleet used new technology that most of Earth's leaders didn't know was possible. Faster engines, stronger weapons, better shields. Ships that could travel distances in days that used to take weeks. "Even with the new drives," Colonel Harper said, "the distance is enormous, and we would have to fight our way through multiple Korath defensive lines." "Not if we're smart about it," Admiral Wong replied. She activated another display showing hidden human outposts scattered throughout the outer rim. "We've been building supply stations for 2 years. The Korath don't know they exist." Dr. Kevin Murphy, the chief scientist of the Terra Prime project, stepped forward. "The quantum drives are untested over such distances. We could lose ships to drive failures. We could also save 2 million innocent lives." Admiral Wong made her decision. She activated the secure communication system and sent an encrypted message to Fleet Admiral Danny Roberts. The message was brief. "Operation Thunder Run is authorized. Deploy Terra Prime fleet to Kepler 442 immediately." 8 hours later, Fleet Admiral Roberts stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty and watched the largest human fleet ever assembled prepare for departure. 12 massive dreadnoughts hung in space around him, each one bristling with weapons that had never been used in combat. 67 destroyers formed neat formations nearby, their crews running final system checks. Captain Angela Davis joined him at the observation deck. "The men are nervous," she said. "They know this mission is different." "Different how?" "We're not defending Earth or protecting a trade route. We're flying across the galaxy to help people most of our crews have never even met." Fleet Admiral Roberts nodded. "That's exactly why we're doing it. The Villani trusted us to protect them. We gave our word." The final preparations took 12 hours. Chief Engineer Rachel Miller pushed the quantum drives beyond their designed limits, knowing that speed was more important than safety. Every minute they delayed meant more Villani civilians would die. Commander Tony Garcia led the scout squadron that would clear the path ahead. His stealth fighters were equipped with new cloaking technology that made them nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Their job was to eliminate any Korath patrols before the main fleet arrived. "First jump in 30 seconds, announced the navigation officer. "All ships report ready." Fleet Admiral Roberts opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Roberts. We are about to attempt something that many people believe is impossible. We're going to travel halfway across the galaxy in 4 days to rescue people who are depending on us." He paused and looked around the bridge at his crew. They were young men and women from Earth, trained on the latest technology but untested in real combat. The Korath Empire thinks distance and numbers make them untouchable. They think no one will challenge them in a remote system like Kepler 442. They're about to learn that they're wrong. When humans give their word, we keep it, no matter how far we have to travel, no matter what stands in our way. The first hyperspace jump took them to the edge of the Sol system. The second jump carried them past the outer colonies toward the frontier regions. With each jump, they moved farther from Earth and closer to Korath space. During the journey, the fleet encountered its first enemy contact. A Korath patrol group of 8 ships was conducting routine sweeps near a fuel depot the humans needed to use. Commander Garcia's stealth fighters attacked without warning, destroying the enemy vessels before they could send a distress signal. "Clean sweep," Garcia reported. "No survivors, no transmissions." The fleet refueled quickly and continued toward their destination. Chief Engineer Miller worked around the clock, monitoring the quantum drives and making adjustments on the fly. The new technology was performing better than expected, but she knew they were pushing the engines hard. Captain Jeff Thompson commanded one of the destroyer squadrons providing escort for the supply ships. His job was to protect the fuel tankers and ammunition carriers that would be needed for the coming battle. Without those supplies, the fleet would be stranded deep in enemy territory. Captain Maria Lopez led another destroyer group focused on communications and intelligence gathering. Her ships intercepted Korath military transmissions and tried to build a picture of enemy deployments around New Haven. "The Korath are getting confident," she reported to Fleet Admiral Roberts. "Their communications are becoming less careful. They think they have already won. Good. Overconfidence will work in our favor." The third day of the journey brought more challenges. The fleet had to navigate through an asteroid field that the Korath used as a natural barrier. The big dreadnought struggled with the tight maneuvering required, but Captain Davis proved her skill by guiding the Liberty through the field without a scratch. Chief Petty Officer Sam Clark led damage control teams throughout the fleet, fixing small problems before they became big ones. The constant jumping was putting stress on ship systems that had never been tested this way. On the 4th day, long-range sensors began detecting massive energy signatures ahead. The Korath fleet around New Haven was even larger than intelligence reports had suggested. Admiral Thexkar commanded over 300 vessels, including several planet-killer dreadnoughts that could destroy cities from orbit. "They're not expecting us," reported the sensor officer. "Enemy ships are in standard patrol formation. No signs of heightened alert status." Fleet Admiral Roberts smiled grimly. The Korath were about to receive the surprise of their lives. For generations, they had bullied smaller species because no one had the power to stop them. That was about to change. "All ships prepare for final jump," he ordered. "When we arrive in the Kepler 442 system, we go straight to battle stations. The Terra Prime fleet is about to announce its existence to the galaxy." Dr. Murphy monitored the quantum drives one last time. The engines were running hot, but they would hold together for the final jump. Everything depended on arriving in the right position, at the right time. "Jump in 10 seconds, announced the navigation. Officer Fleet Admiral Roberts looked at the tactical display showing New Haven surrounded by enemy ships. Somewhere down on that planet, Commander Martinez and her people were fighting a hopeless battle. They had no idea that help was coming. The stars shifted as the Terra Prime fleet made its final jump toward destiny. Admiral Thexkar stood on the command deck of his flagship and watched the final preparations for planetary bombardment. The Villani resistance had lasted longer than expected, but it would end today. In 6 hours, orbital weapons would reduce every major city on New Haven to ash and glass. "Admiral," called his sensor officer, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings at the edge of the system." Thexkar didn't bother looking up from his tactical display. "Probably interference from the stellar radiation." This system's star produces more electromagnetic noise than most. Sir, the readings are getting stronger. Multiple contacts, show me. The main display shifted to show the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system. At first there was nothing visible except empty space and distant asteroids. Then the sensors registered a massive energy surge, and space itself seemed to tear open. The Terra Prime fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 12 enormous dreadnoughts appeared first, their hulls gleaming with fresh armor plating. Behind them came wave after wave of destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels. The human fleet spread across space like a steel wall moving toward New Haven. Thexkar stared at the display in shock. What species builds ships that large? Unknown, sir. The hull configurations don't match any known designs in our database. How many ships? Over 200, Admiral. And they're all heading directly toward us. Thexkar activated the fleet communications system. All vessels, this is Admiral Thexkar. Unknown fleet approaching from the outer system. Prepare for possible combat. On the bridge of the UES Liberty, Fleet Admiral Roberts studied the Korath formations around New Haven. The enemy ships were scattered in small patrol groups, clearly not expecting any serious threat. Their positions were terrible for defense but perfect for what Roberts had planned. Open a channel to all Korath vessels, he ordered. Captain Angela Davis activated the communications array. The message would broadcast on every frequency used by the Korath military. This is Fleet Admiral Danny Roberts of the Terra Prime Fleet. Roberts spoke clearly. You have 60 seconds to withdraw all forces from the New Haven system or face total destruction. The bridge crew waited in tense silence. Roberts knew the Korath would never accept his ultimatum, but he wanted to give them the chance. More importantly, he wanted every ship in both fleets to hear his words. Admiral Thexkar laughed when he heard the human message. 60 seconds? These aliens think they can intimidate the Korath Empire? Sir, our tactical analysis shows those ships carry extremely heavy weapons. Their energy signatures are off the charts. I don't care if they have planet crackers, Thexkar snarled. We have 300 ships to their 200. Send a probe squadron to investigate. I want to know who these fools are before I destroy them. 12 Korath light cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward the human fleet. Their mission was simple. Get close enough to scan the unknown vessels and report back with detailed information. Fleet Admiral Roberts watched the approaching enemy ships on his tactical display. Captain Davis, you may fire when ready. Captain Davis had served on human warships for 15 years, but she had never commanded weapons like the ones mounted on the Liberty. The new plasma cannons could punch through almost any armor. The particle beam arrays could slice through multiple targets with a single shot. Forward batteries target the lead enemy vessels, she ordered. Fire. The Liberty's main guns erupted in brilliant flashes of blue-white energy. Plasma bolts crossed the distance between the fleets in seconds, striking the first Korath cruiser directly amidships. The enemy vessel simply vanished in a ball of superheated gas. The second cruiser tried to change course, but particle beams from 3 different human ships converged on its position. The Korath ship broke apart like a toy hit by a hammer. Within 2 minutes, all 12 probe ships were destroyed. The human fleet hadn't even slowed down. Admiral Thexkar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His probe squadron was gone, wiped out without inflicting any damage on the attackers. The unknown ships were still approaching, and their weapons were far more powerful than anything he had ever seen. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface, reported the communications officer. Put it through. Commander Lisa Martinez's voice filled the Korath command center. She was speaking to the human fleet, but her words reached every ship in the system. This is Commander Martinez on New Haven. Admiral Roberts, thank you for coming. We have Korath ground forces in 12 locations. The main concentration is near the capital city. We're sending you targeting coordinates now. Thexkar felt a cold chill run down his spine. These weren't random pirates or mercenaries. This was a human fleet, and they had come specifically to rescue the Villani. Earth was supposed to be on the other side of the galaxy. How had they traveled so far so quickly? All ships form defensive formation around the planet, he ordered. Prepare for full-scale engagement. The Korath fleet began moving into position, but they were too slow. The human ships were already entering weapons range, and their formation was perfect for what came next. Fleet Admiral Roberts opened a channel to his entire fleet. Execute Thunder Run. All ships attack Pattern 7. Show them what happens when they threaten our allies. The Terra Prime fleet suddenly accelerated to combat speed. The big dreadnoughts moved forward in a wedge formation, their massive guns targeting the largest Korath vessels. The destroyers spread out in supporting positions, ready to engage multiple targets simultaneously. Captain Jeff Thompson commanded the destroyer squadron assigned to protect the fleet's flanks. His ships moved with precision that amazed even veteran space crews. The new targeting computers allowed them to engage 6 different enemies at once while maintaining perfect formation. "Multiple targets locked," reported his weapons officer. "Ready to fire. Fire at will." Thompson's destroyers unleashed a storm of missiles and energy beams. Korath ships tried to return fire, but their weapons seemed weak compared to human technology. Enemy shots that should have damaged destroyer hulls barely scratched the new armor plating. Captain Maria Lopez led her squadron in a flanking maneuver designed to cut off Korath reinforcements. Her ships swept around the edge of the battle zone, destroying enemy vessels that tried to escape or call for help. Down on New Haven's surface, Major Steve Johnson watched the space battle through his field binoculars. Explosions lit up the night sky as human and Korath ships exchanged fire. For the first time in days, he felt hope. "This is Johnson to all ground units," he broadcast on the emergency frequency. "The cavalry has arrived. Prepare for close air support." The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships demonstrated technological superiority that shocked both sides. The new shield systems absorbed massive amounts of enemy fire while human weapons cut through Korath armor like paper. Admiral Thexkar realized he was facing a disaster. Half his fleet was already destroyed or disabled, and the human ships showed no signs of slowing down. These weren't just advanced weapons, this was technology from a completely different level of civilization. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 18 of our ships," reported his tactical officer. "They're requesting permission to withdraw." Thexkar looked at the tactical display one more time. The human fleet was positioned between his remaining ships and the hyperspace jump points. There was no escape, and continuing the fight would only result in more deaths. But the Korath Empire had never surrendered to anyone. His commanders would rather die fighting than face the shame of defeat. "All ships continue the attack," he ordered. "We fight until the end." Fleet Admiral Roberts watched the enemy formation collapse under sustained human fire. The Korath were brave, he had to give them that. They kept fighting even when the battle was clearly lost, but bravery wouldn't save them from the storm they had brought down on themselves. The Terra Prime fleet had come to New Haven for one reason: to prove that distance and overwhelming odds were not enough to stop humans from protecting their friends. The galaxy was about to learn that Earth kept its promises, no matter what the cost. The space battle entered its most critical phase as Admiral Thexkar ordered his remaining ships to form a defensive sphere around New Haven. His plan was simple but desperate: use the planet itself as a shield and force the humans to risk hitting Villani civilians with their powerful weapons. Fleet Admiral Roberts saw through the strategy immediately. "They're trying to use the planet as cover," he told Captain Davis. "We need to break their formation without endangering the surface." "The Korath command ship is at the center of their formation," Davis observed. "If we could take out their admiral, the rest might surrender." Roberts studied the tactical display. The enemy flagship was surrounded by over 60 Korath vessels, all firing at maximum range to keep the human fleet away from the planet. It would take something special to break through those defenses. "Contact Captain Thompson and Captain Lopez," Roberts ordered. "Tell them to prepare for Operation Hammer Strike." Hammer Strike was a tactic that Roberts had developed during his training simulations. It required perfect timing and coordination between multiple ship groups. If it worked, they could eliminate the enemy command structure in a single devastating attack. If it failed, they would lose half their fleet. Chief Engineer Rachel Miller monitored the Liberty's power systems as the ship pushed toward the enemy formation. The quantum drives were running beyond their design limits, but they would hold together long enough to complete the mission. "Captain, we're getting reports from the surface," called the communications officer. "Major Johnson says the Korath ground forces are pulling back to defensive positions around their landing sites." Captain Davis nodded. The enemy troops knew their fleet was in trouble. They were probably hoping to hold out long enough for reinforcements to arrive from other Korath systems. On New Haven's surface, Major Johnson led his surviving defenders in a series of quick strikes against isolated Korath positions. The alien invaders were tough fighters, but they seemed confused and disorganized without clear orders from their ships in orbit. "We've retaken the Northern Valley," Johnson reported to Commander Martinez. "The Korath are retreating toward their main landing zone near the capital." Martinez coordinated the ground campaign from her damaged command center. Half her equipment was destroyed, but she could still track friendly and enemy positions across the planet. "The human fleet is asking for targeting data on Korath troop concentrations," she told Johnson. "They want to provide orbital fire support. Tell them to focus on the landing zone at coordinate 77 Alpha. That's where most of the enemy troops are concentrated. High above the planet, the human fleet prepared for the most dangerous part of their mission. The Korath defensive formation was strong, and breaking through would require sacrifice from someone." Captain Jeff Thompson received his orders and felt his stomach tighten. His destroyer squadron was assigned to make the first attack run directly into the teeth of the enemy formation. Their job was to absorb as much enemy fire as possible, while the dreadnoughts positioned themselves for the killing blow. "All ships in Destroyer Squadron 7, Thompson broadcast to his crews. "We're going in first. Remember your training and watch out for each other." Thompson's destroyers accelerated toward the Korath formation at maximum speed. Enemy weapons immediately focused on the approaching human ships. Plasma bolts and missile swarms filled the space around the destroyers as they pushed deeper into the defensive sphere. The UES Phoenix, commanded by Captain Lisa Brown, took a direct hit from a Korath heavy cruiser. The ship's shields flared and failed, but the new armor plating held. Brown kept her ship moving forward, returning fire with everything she had. "Hull breach on Deck 4, reported her damage control officer. "We're losing atmosphere in 3 compartments. Seal those sections and keep firing," Brown ordered. "We're not backing down." Captain Maria Lopez led her squadron in from the opposite direction, forcing the Korath to divide their attention between multiple threats. Her ships moved in a complex weaving pattern that made them harder to target while allowing them to concentrate their fire on specific enemy vessels. The battle reached its climax when Fleet Admiral Roberts gave the order for the final phase of hammer strike. All 12 human dreadnoughts suddenly accelerated toward the center of the Korath formation, their massive guns targeting Admiral Thexkar's flagship. "All dreadnoughts, focus fire on the enemy command ship," Roberts ordered. "Everything we have." The combined firepower of 12 dreadnoughts was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dozens of plasma cannons and particle beam arrays fired simultaneously, creating a concentrated storm of energy that no ship could survive. Admiral Thexakar had just enough time to realize what was happening before his flagship disappeared in a brilliant explosion. The massive vessel simply ceased to exist, vaporized by more destructive power than most species used to crack asteroids. The death of their admiral sent shockwaves through the Korath fleet. Without central command, individual ship captains began making their own decisions. Some tried to continue fighting. Others attempted to escape. A few simply stopped firing and waited to see what would happen next. Chief Petty Officer Sam Clark led damage control teams throughout the human fleet, repairing battle damage as quickly as possible. The Liberty had taken several hits, but nothing that would prevent her from continuing the fight. "Hull integrity at 87%, Clark reported to Captain Davis. "We can take a lot more punishment if needed," but the punishment wasn't needed. With their command structure destroyed, the remaining Korath ships began surrendering one by one. The few vessels that tried to escape were intercepted by Captain Lopez's squadron before they could reach the hyperspace jump points. The space battle was over, but the fight for New Haven's surface continued. Colonel Beth Harper led the first wave of human Marines down to the planet in heavily armed dropships. Their mission was to link up with Major Johnson's forces and eliminate the remaining Korath ground troops. Harper's Marines landed near the capital city and immediately came under fire from entrenched enemy positions. The Korath soldiers were desperate now, knowing that their fleet was gone and no help would come. "This is Colonel Harper to orbital support," she called over her radio. "We need precision strikes on the enemy fortifications. Coordinates incoming." Captain Davis personally handled the orbital bombardment, using the Liberty's smaller guns to provide close support for the ground forces. The targeting had to be perfect. One mistake could kill human Marines or Volani civilians. The human weapons were designed for ship-to-ship combat, but they worked just as well against ground targets. Korath bunkers that had seemed impregnable simply vanished under precise plasma strikes from orbit. Major Johnson's ground forces advanced alongside the human Marines, liberating Volani prison camps and securing important facilities. The coordination between human and Volani units was almost perfect, as if they had trained together for years. "We've secured the main power plant," Johnson reported. "The Korath were planning to destroy it, but we stopped them in time." Dr. Kevin Murphy monitored the battle from his position aboard one of the support ships. His quantum drive technology had made this rescue mission possible, but now he was more interested in studying Korath weapons and equipment. Understanding enemy technology would help prepare for future conflicts. The ground campaign lasted 18 hours. When it ended, every Korath soldier on New Haven was either dead or captured. The alien invaders had fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned by the combined human and Volani forces. Commander Martinez stood in the ruins of her command center and watched human Marines help Volani civilians return to their homes. The capital city was damaged but not destroyed. Most importantly, the people were safe. "Admiral Roberts," she called over the communication system. "This is Commander Martinez. New Haven is secure. The Korath threat has been eliminated." Fleet Admiral Roberts looked out at the wreckage of the enemy fleet floating in space around the planet. Over 200 Korath ships had been destroyed or captured. The survivors would be interrogated and then sent back to their own territory with a message. The message was simple. Earth protected its friends. Anyone who threatened human allies would face the full power of the Terra Prime fleet. The Battle of New Haven was over, but its effects would spread throughout the galaxy. Every species would learn that humans traveled any distance and faced any odds to keep their promises. The age of Korath expansion had ended. The age of human protection had begun. 3 weeks after the Battle of New Haven, news of the human victory had spread to every corner of known space. The story grew with each telling, but the basic facts remained the same. Earth had sent its most powerful fleet across impossible distances to rescue a small colony that most species had never heard of. Admiral Patricia Wong arrived at New Haven aboard the UES Constitution, bringing with her a massive reconstruction fleet and enough supplies to rebuild the entire planet. She stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked down at the world the Terra Prime fleet had saved. "Status report," she asked Captain Angela Davis, who had been promoted to serve as Wong's aide for the reconstruction effort. "All major cities are operational again," Davis replied. "The Volani have been amazing. They started rebuilding the day after we secured the planet." Wong nodded. The Volani were a remarkable people. Despite everything they had suffered during the Korath occupation, they showed no bitterness toward their attackers. They simply wanted to get back to growing food and raising their families. "What about the political situation? That's where things get interesting," Davis said with a small smile. "We're receiving requests for protection agreements from over 30 species. Everyone wants to be allied with Earth now. The Battle of New Haven had done more than save one colony. It had announced to the galaxy that humanity was now the dominant military power in their region of space. The Korath Empire, which had seemed unstoppable just a month ago, was collapsing as their subject species declared independence. Commander Lisa Martinez had been promoted to planetary administrator. For New Haven, she worked closely with the human engineering teams to rebuild her world better than it had been before. The new infrastructure used technology that was years ahead of anything the Volani had possessed. Were installing fusion power plants in all the major cities, she reported to Admiral Wong during their daily briefing. The human engineers say they'll provide clean energy for the next 1,000 years. What about agriculture? Production is already back to pre-invasion levels. Dr. Murphy's team has introduced new crop varieties that grow faster and produce higher yields. We'll be able to feed twice as many people with the same amount of land. Admiral Wong was pleased with the progress, but she knew the real changes were happening beyond New Haven. The galaxy's balance of power was shifting, and Earth was at the center of that shift. Fleet Admiral Danny Roberts remained in the Kepler 442 system with most of the Terra Prime fleet. His mission was to establish a permanent human presence in this sector and coordinate with other species that wanted protection from remaining Korath forces. "We're Building a major space station in orbit around New Haven, Roberts told Wong during their weekly conference call. It will serve as headquarters for all human operations in this part of the galaxy. How large? Big enough to service and repair the entire Terra Prime fleet. We're also including diplomatic facilities and research laboratories. This will be our forward base for the next phase of expansion. Chief Engineer Rachel Miller supervised the construction of the new station. The project required resources from a dozen different star systems, but human logistics had improved dramatically since the development of quantum drive technology. The station will be operational in 6 months, Miller reported. We're using modular construction techniques that allow us to expand it as needed. Dr. Kevin Murphy established a permanent research facility on New Haven's largest moon. His team was studying captured Korath technology and developing new weapon systems for the expanding human fleet. The Korath had some interesting ideas about shield technology, Murphy told Admiral Wong. We can improve our defenses by about 30% using modified versions of their designs. What about their weapons? Primitive compared to ours, but they had good manufacturing techniques. We can produce plasma cannons much faster using their assembly methods. The most important changes were happening in the political sphere. Captain Davis found herself appointed as Earth's first ambassador to the Free Worlds Coalition, a new alliance of species that had declared independence from the Korath Empire. 27 species have joined the coalition so far. Davis reported from the diplomatic conference on Centauri Prime. They're all requesting human military protection in exchange for trade agreements and technological cooperation. The request put Earth in a difficult position. Protecting so many different worlds would require a massive expansion of human military forces. But the alternative was watching them fall back under Korath control or be conquered by other hostile empires. We need more ships, Fleet Admiral Roberts told Admiral Wong during their strategy meeting. The Terra Prime fleet can handle major threats, but we need smaller formations to patrol individual systems. How many ships? At least 500 destroyers and 100 cruisers, plus support vessels and logistics ships. We're talking about a fleet larger than anything Earth has ever built. Admiral Wong understood the implications. Earth would need to transform from a single-world civilization into a galactic power almost overnight. The economic and social changes would be enormous, but the alternative was worse. If humans didn't step up to fill the power vacuum left by the Korath collapse, someone else would. And that someone might not be as interested in protecting peaceful species. Major Steve Johnson was promoted to general and put in charge of training new human marine units for planetary defense missions. His experience fighting alongside Vellani forces on New Haven made him the perfect choice for developing cooperation protocols with alien military units. We're establishing training bases on 12 different worlds, Johnson reported. Each base will specialize in different types of terrain and combat situations. What about recruitment? We're not just training humans anymore. The Vellani want to contribute to their own defense, and several other species have asked to join our military programs. We're going to have truly integrated forces for the first time in galactic history. Captain Jeff Thompson was given command of the new Fast Response Fleet, a formation of advanced destroyers designed to reach crisis zones quickly. His ships could travel from Earth to the outer colonies in less than a week using improved quantum drives. We've already responded to 3 different situations, Thompson told Fleet Admiral Roberts. Pirates attacking a trading convoy near Wolf 359, raiders threatening a mining colony in the Vega system, and a territorial dispute between 2 species in the Tau Ceti region. Results? The pirates surrendered when they saw our ships. The raiders fled without fighting. The territorial dispute was settled through negotiation once both sides realized Earth was involved. Captain Maria Lopez led the intelligence division that monitored remaining Korath forces. Her teams discovered that the Empire was fracturing into smaller groups, some of which wanted to continue fighting while others sought peace with the new galactic order. The moderate faction is led by Admiral Vex Thor, Lopez reported. He's reached out through diplomatic channels asking for a meeting. What does he want? An end to the fighting. His faction controls about 40% of the remaining Korath fleet. They're willing to accept human oversight in exchange for being allowed to govern their own systems. The diplomatic solution would save countless lives, but it also meant Earth would become responsible for monitoring former enemies. The galaxy was becoming more complicated every day. Chief Petty Officer Sam Clark found himself training alien engineers in human maintenance techniques. The new Alliance ships needed to be able to repair and maintain human technology, which required extensive cooperation between different species. The Villani engineers are incredibly fast learners, Clark told his supervisors. They understand our quantum drive systems better than some of our own technicians. 6 months after the Battle of New Haven, Admiral Wong stood on the observation deck of the new space station and watched ships from a dozen different species working together to build a better galaxy. The massive structure was already larger than any space habitat humanity had ever constructed. Fleet Admiral Roberts joined her at the viewing port. Any regrets about Operation Thunder Run? Wong thought about the question carefully. The mission to save New Haven had changed everything. Earth was now committed to protecting dozens of worlds and managing relationships with hundreds of different species. The responsibility was enormous. Ask me again in 100 years, she said finally. Right now, I'm just proud that we kept our promise. Down on New Haven's surface, Commander Martinez watched human and Villani children playing together in the rebuilt capital city. The integration was happening naturally, without force or conflict. The children didn't see differences between species. They just saw friends. A message chimed on her communicator. It was from Admiral Wong, informing her that 12 more fleets were being prepared for deployment to other sectors. Each fleet would be equipped with technology even more advanced than what the Terra Prime fleet had used. Martinez smiled as she read the message. The galaxy had thought no one would come when the Korath attacked New Haven. They had been wrong about that, just as they were wrong about humanity's willingness to accept responsibility for protecting peaceful worlds. Earth had proven that distance, overwhelming odds, and impossible.